sant yàlla.
looy xaar utal Wave nga scan nga fay nag doo ci yokku dara.
Jar Oil, the company, have filling stations across the country, and our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. Jar Oil is the biggest producer and distributor of cement in the country with the most competitive prices in the market.
In the Gambia, we all move to different paces. Time is money, convenience is power, and now both are in your hands. No more long lines, no more late payments, no more missed chances, not anymore. Because now the Gambia has its own super app, Zap. One app, one tap, endless convenience. Send money instantly, pay your bills in seconds, shop without borders, pay your rides, order your meal, buy your ticket, deposit and withdraw money for absolutely free. No extra charges, no hidden fees, only on Zap Super App. This is not just convenience. This is confidence. This is the future in your hands. And the best part, Zap is born right here. Built for us, designed for every Gambian home, every Gambian dream. So don't wait in the past. Step into the future. Download Zap today on App Store and Play Store and enjoy endless free services. Call us today on our toll-free number 1666 or on 260-0001. Zap. All in one. All for you. Tap in. Zap in.
On Tuesday, the 2nd of December 2025, you're with Coffee Time with Peter Gomez. We're coming to you live on FM across the country, 92.1 megahertz, and online at www.wcr.gm. Thanks for joining us. Now, later this week, on Friday, the 5th of December, to be precise, another budget speech will be delivered in the National Assembly. Now, this follows the tabling weeks prior of the 2026 estimates of revenue and expenditure by the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs for close scrutiny by the lawmakers. Now, amid heated debate over the national budget, all eyes are on the man at the center of it, Finance Minister Seedy Keita. From questions about spending priorities to concerns over revenue mobilization, the 2026 budget has sparked intense discussion across the country. So this morning, Minister Keita is here in the studio to respond to the critics, explain the government's fiscal choices, and outline how this budget is meant to steer the country through its economic challenges. Hopefully, it's a candid conversation on the numbers, the policies, and the politics behind the budget. Minister Seedy Keita, good to have you back with us here. I always call you in-law because, my good friend, Mohamed Lamin Marong, a.k.a. Kuku, is your in-law.
Yes.
Good to have you in the program, on the program this morning.
Good morning, Peter. Thank you very much. Good morning to you and the listeners. And it's a pleasure to have you back, to have me here back in the studios. And I must congratulate you on the facelift.
Thank you.
The studios have witnessed since my last appearance here. This is progress, and this is what we like as government, to see private sector at the forefront of expansion and development. Mm-hmm. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So you describe your budget as people-centered, but critics think otherwise. I'm just going through some of the things they say. It's unrealistic allocations, it's unfunded institutions, it's election-driven spending, it's heavy reliance on grants and loans, it's rising debt burden, it's tax surge and pressure, it's mismatch with national priorities.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, those are critiques, and which is welcome in the public discourse. But unfortunately, no. This is a very people-centered budget once again, with the sole objective of improving the well-being and the quality of life of all Gambians. And in the budget evolution of the country, this year's budget, despite it being an election year, has recorded the lowest deficit in the last 10 years. The deficit on all funds, that is government funds plus donor funded, is 1%. And the deficit on only government funds, which is the GLF component, is 0.3%. So technically, we can say it's a very, very, very fiscally responsible budget. I have had a lot of discussions about the budget. Of course, I've been following the social media, but I've not had anybody mention about that. And that one singular comment is the summary of every budget.
Is it out there to be recognized in the budget?
It's there. It's there right in the first page of the budget. But what I have discovered when we lay out the budget in the last several years, the discussion always centers on the allocation to the ministries, on the spendings. They don't look at the financial...
And the debt servicing.
Yes, of course, it's part of the expense structure. They don't focus on the quality of the budget. The quality of the budget is it fiscally responsible? Are you putting forward a budget that will incur further more debt going into priority area, going into areas that are not priority? And are you investing in the right category of expenditure? As a developing country, I think our key resource is human capital. And the allocation to these sectors have increased tremendously this year. Education continues to outperform all other sectors in terms of allocation. Basic and secondary education alone has been allocated about 5.9 billion, almost $6 billion. And this is followed by health expenditure, which is another large allocation of about, basically, the allocation to the health is about 3 billion. And then support followed through by agriculture, infrastructure. These are large allocation to what they say, capital formation aspect of an economy. Because if you invest in the human capital, you are investing in the future. If you invest in the healthcare, you are investing in the well-being of people. And the energy infrastructure is also fully, substantially supported in this budget. So in a nutshell, this is what I would describe this budget: fiscally responsible, people-centered, and putting the money where people deserve to receive funding from.
Mm-hmm. Why is agriculture not outperforming both education and health? Because if you're talking about productive sectors,
yes,
if you get agriculture going,
mm-hmm.
agriculture could in turn fund both education and health.
Yes, but it's agriculture as a sector is a recipient of substantial funding from partners. And that's why if you look at historical allocation from the core government allocation, agriculture has not featured prominently in the past. And this year we flipped the coin around. We've increased allocation to the agricultural sector by 84%. Mm-hmm. This year the allocation to agriculture is 1.75 billion. And it represents the largest Dalasi allocation to the sector ever. And it's an 84% increase over the previous year. So it means we are now investing in agriculture from our own resources as well as that of the partners. If you combine the allocation of partners and the government, agriculture resource envelope goes to about 6 billion. So it doesn't mean that agriculture is not funded. And I think we have to put this in context. Mm-hmm. We are a developing country, and these are partners that are here to help our development agenda. So you don't crowd out the limited national budget when the partners are there, particularly a large large intervention in the agricultural sector is grant-based, and these are not loans. And I think this is the point I need to clarify. Given our debt situation, we have strategies in place to be fiscally prudent. Most of our financial transactions with partner countries have changed. currently all our engagement with the World Bank, that is the IDA, International Development Association of the World Bank Group, are grant-based. So they don't give loans. So that means they are giving us support without the condition to repay back. Then also in the ADB also, most of our engagement with the ADB are also grant-based. And the EU also, the European Union financial transactions with the government are substantially grant-based. So this is how the sector's allocations. Because if you're designing a budget, you look at potential funding sources that are available versus sectors that do not have such. And you prioritize. You not allocating a large amount to a specific sector from your own funds doesn't mean that that sector is neglected. No. It will be a signal that this sector is funded from other funding sources, because every sector in the economy has some form of funding, but some are more amenable to external donor support, to other sources of financing. So we at the Ministry of Finance are in the full know of where the funds are coming, to what sector, in what form. That's why we allocate the limited national budget, that is the GLF component, to those sectors where we believe the funding from other sources might not be there.
What about Seedy?
Yes.
From the pre-budget conversation being around, I should say pre-budget speech conversation being around, the underinvestment, perennial underinvestment in agriculture. People also, talk about the debt servicing and the amount of debt, and you hear that between 2017 and now, which means the entire period of Adama Barrow in office, the Gambia has contracted more debt than Jawara and Jammeh combined.
I have had this conversation, and we have gone out of the way to clear. But sometimes some will put this out for political reasons, but the facts are as follows.
What are the facts?
You see, the debt situation of the country is not a straight line. We have to understand the debt structure of the country in order to better understand it. First of all, coming into being of the present dispensation of His Excellency President Adama Barrow.
By the way, it's the 9th anniversary of his declaration as winner of the 2016.
Well, congratulations to His Excellency, the President, and the entire nation for the bold step taken to put the Gambia on the right trajectory. When that happened, there were a lot of issues in the economy. As you know, in the previous regime, there were debts that were overhung in the system. We all knew the legacy debts that were floating around, even though they were debts of the state, but they were not officially recognized in the books of the state. This was consolidated. We had obligations to Social Security, government obligations to Trust Bank, and other financial institutions, and interagency obligations. These were consolidated and packaged into what they call a 30-year bond. Then we also had the issue of legacy debts at NAWEC. This was also consolidated into the NAWEC bond. And we also had some obligations such as confirmed debts, which was to the tune of over $50 million as a result of settlement of legal dispute with Karafi, a constructor. So these are all packed. So government took this new 3 set of debts as debts without actually borrowing, but it's a recognition of public obligation. So that is very important to put on the card. And I've asked my team that given the public interest in this, we need to quantify all of this as the records are, and we'll have a press conference to just generally explain to Gambians the evolution of the national debt. Given that it's a large chunk of the budget allocation, it has attracted a number of interests, and perhaps it is seen as fiscally imprudent of this government. But that's not the only thing. The second element is people forget. In the previous regime, this country has benefited from highly indebted poor countries initiative, debt relief.
HIPIC.
So that literally wiped out about 20% of the
wow.
national debt stock at the time. The partners have allowed the country to have a breathing space, and they have literally foregone the present value equivalent of about 20% of the national debt outstanding, and allowed the country to put that in investment in the core economic sectors. So that debt forgiveness is there. And with the onslaught of COVID, the country has gone into what they call debt service suspension initiative. That means from 2020-21 thereabout until 2023, 2024 basically, the debt servicing of the principal of external debts to multilateral development partners were suspended. So literally you have your stock of debt, which you are only paying the interest on, and the principal was stagnant. All right? Mm-hmm. So you see how this is. So if you have a debt stock that's constant, and don't forget, most of these debt stocks were denominated in foreign currency.
Of course.
So we also have the impact of the exchange rate. When this government came in, the dollar was about 50 thereabout. Today we're talking about almost 72, 73 to the dollar. So even the exchange rate movement alone has added a couple of billions to the debt stock. But I don't want to sound, but that is the reality.
Yeah, well, you have to clear
that is what is there. But it's best these elements that I'm discussing are numerically shown, so that we know what quantity belonged to what was the debt forgiveness HIPIC in quantifiable terms, what were the legacy debts, the 3 legacy debts I have mentioned, and what were the impact of the foreign currency. We are not going to say that there has not been any new borrowing. Absolutely not. But where has those funds gone into? You realize the Batin Hardin Highway is more than $150 million worth of investment. And that was loan. 65% was funded by loans. The University of the Gambia, even though the concept was there, the project was there, but the construction actually took place under the leadership of His Excellency Adama Barrow. Both phase 1 and phase 2, which will soon be inaugurated, were funded through debt. Then you have the electricity access. You see, now today we have blessed with the 225 kVA voltage, which has enabled this country to be able to access power from as far as Guinea, from as far as Senegal. Before, that was not available. The energy infrastructure that has generated that capability was funded by debt. You have the solar farm in Jambur, which was also equally funded by debt. And investment in agriculture. Some of the interventions in the agricultural sector, in the energy sector, are all funded by debt. So what it means is that the debts contracted have gone into tangible, identifiable transactions, which have continued to not only serve current generation, but will serve future generations to come. And look at the economic potential these have unleashed. That is why, in fact, we are so mindful of the debt obligation that in our borrowing transaction, we are only taking concessional debt. What I mean by concessional debt is those debts that have a grant element of a minimum of 35%. That means if I sign a loan obligation with any partner today, as a minimum for every $100 I sign, the effective payment I have to make as a country will be $65. So the 35% will be in the form of a grant element. So this is how it's happening. And we are not alone. Following the onslaught of COVID, the whole world has gone into this debt spiral. And the allocation to the debt service that is in this budget is a accumulation, is an outcome of that. What we have, particularly this year, we have about 31% of the budget, particularly government funds, allocated to debt service. This is on the backdrop of, for 3 or 4 years, you were not servicing your principal. And that period has lapsed, so now you are now servicing both the principal and the interest component. Meanwhile, you're servicing using Dalasi. Your exchange rate has depreciated. So that means for every dollar, you now need more Dalasis to service the same quantum of debt. So this is the evolution of the debt. And I would refer the audience to put our situation in context. Let them just look around how other countries' debt structure is. Today, as we speak, our debt to GDP is hovering around 71 to 72%, up to 75%. So that is the range base of our debt structure. If you look at the region, of course, we are not the lowest, but we are not on the high. We are not very high as such. And in terms of the absolute number, in the World Bank has issued a publication called the World Debt Report, which looks at the entire external obligations of all countries globally, and we fare in very well. Our debt obligation stands under under $2 billion. So, more importantly, what this government is contracting is doing is expanding the economic base. Today, as we speak, we have witnessed a substantial increase in the revenue collection capability, in the domestic resource mobilization. And that means our ability as a country to service this debt is growing. It's unlike before. Of course, you have low debt stock, but what could you do with that? If you look back in 2022, the total revenue collected as domestic revenue from the GRA was $11.6 billion. This year, 2025, we have clocked already 23 billion realized, and we are on course to almost hit 25 billion.
Yeah, so I see in one of the newspaper headlines.
So that means that in 3 years, our revenue generating capability as a government has increased 115%. So this is just in 3 years. So these investments have what they call a gestation period. The full impact of this investment in the roads, in the energy sector, in the education sector, in the health sector, have yet actually come to fruition. So we are very confident that when those economic benefits come to light, then not only will our revenue collection capability of the government to service this debt will be strengthened further, but it will change the landscape of the economy. And that is what contracting a debt